Chapter 481, Another Look at the Forbidden. Pain. That was all Tang Wuling could comprehend at the moment, his flesh bubbling from a searing heat, blood vessels bulging from his skin, but it was insignificant compared to what he had endured in previous seal breakings. The radiant energy of the Golden Dragon King poured into his body, rushing quicker and quicker, to the point of bursting. Yet the pressure began to decrease, his body gobbling up the energy and repurposing it into his own strength. A sense of liberation and excitement washed over him, the cells of his body singing, brimming with energy. They resonated with the crescendoing draconic roar within him. The parts of his body hidden from his view took on a pattern of golden veins. They were mostly concentrated on his back, shining resplendently so. Tang Wuling's aura of might rose to the sky, gusts kicking up around him. His blood essence raged through his meridian channels like a roaring river. Golden scales manifested on his forehead. They gradually turned translucent, sparkling crystals that encrusted his skin. Scales spread across his right arm, shoulder, and the right side of his torso. Then they spread further, empowered by the energy of the Golden Dragon King. They encroached up his neck, claiming it as their domain. Then they turned their sights to the unscaled side of his torso and shoulder. They stopped short of covering his left arm. The golden veins across his body flowed brighter than ever, tracing deeper and wider into his skin. The cry of his blood essence. A golden soul ring emerged from his body, spinning around him. Then a second emerged, a faint trim of light at its edges. This new ring bled pure gold an instant later. The cracking and popping of bones. Tang Wuling now stood a few centimeters taller. Blood essence and soul power mixed within him. The soul power growing purer under the blood essence's influence, strengthening his body further. Unknown to Tang Wuling, his blood essence had always influenced his soul power, but at this particular moment it was to a higher degree. Rather than directly increasing his soul power, his blood essence continuously refined and compressed it. The body was a vessel in which its volume and the strength of its meridian channels and itself were closely entwined. But there were limits to how large it could grow, even for a title Douluo. In order to maximize their strength, they compressed their soul power so that a denser, more potent form of the energy filled them. Usually, only soul kings and stronger compress their soul power, since that was when the limits of the human body began revealing themselves. Tang Wuling, however, had long since started compressing and refining his soul power thanks to his blood essence. This was the true cause of his slow cultivation speed, and were it not for this, he wouldn't have been able to stand on the level as Yuan and Yui. The value of compressed soul power became more apparent with strength. Wrapped in a blanket of warmth, Tang Wuling submerged into the depths of his mind, throwing himself fully into meditation. His soul power and blood essence resonated, a gentle thrum to the energies as his scales twinkled in the darkness of the room. Now was the time to consolidate the power he gained from the fourth seal into his own. When the medicinal aroma finally faded from the air, Yuan and Yui opened her eyes. A day had passed. The sun shone brightly in the morning sky. She stood up and stretched her back. Astonishment colored her face. She felt like a new person. She had drawn out all the impurities in her body, a sticky layer of a mucus-like substance on her skin. It felt disgusting, but the fact that she had become stronger from this cleansing was a comforting thought. She did, however, face a problem. Because of her deal with Tang Wuling, she was currently in the middle of guarding him and couldn't leave to wash herself. But to continue on in such a dirty state was unthinkable. She took a tentative sniff of her body and nearly choked. She scanned the area, ears perking up. Sure enough, there was no one else to be found in the working students' dormitory. She directed her gaze back to Tang Wuling's door, heard his deep and steady breaths, and decided he wouldn't wake up anytime soon. It would be fine for her to wash off in the courtyard. Yuan and Yui always kept her promises. Since she agreed to guard Tang Wuling, she would do so until the end. She had benefited from the leaked medicinal aroma too, so she couldn't just leave, especially with her righteous heart. She drew up 2 buckets of water, grabbed a set of clean clothes, and walked back to the courtyard to wash herself. She could handle the cold water, checking once more that Tang Wuling was deep in his meditations and assured that he would stay that way. She threw her dirty clothes off to the side, emptying a bucket over herself. A smile graced her lips as soon as the water met her skin. She felt refreshed with the muck off her body. Her wet skin glistened under the sunlight, a hint of pink to it, a shine to it that wasn't there before. Just what is Tang Wuling up to? His medicine is so potent. Yuan and Yui was without a doubt quite lucky, because Tang Wuling already had a strong body and only had 3 soul rings. He couldn't absorb the full extent of the spirit item's medical potency. For that reason, Yuan and Yui was able to use the energies that had leaked. Furthermore, if she hadn't been there guarding him, the energies leaking out of his pores would have gone to waste. Fortune allowed her to absorb a third of that medical potency. Another cause for the medicinal energy leakage was that Tang Wuling's body had already been full to the brim of the energy of heavenly treasures, courtesy of Zhenhua's beneficial foods. Yuan and Yui looked down at her rosy skin, astonished. Before this event, her figure had been slender yet still possessing the curves and charm of one stepping into the sphere of womanhood. Now this coupled with her newly clear complexion, her delicate and pink skin, she had grown even more beautiful. She stretched her body, which glistened under the sun, a radiant aura around her. She could have been a goddess for all the world knew. She ran her fingers through her hair, tagging past the odd tangle and knot, the cool droplets still running down her skin and leaving tracks wherever they went. Satisfied, she moved to turn around and dressed when all of a sudden her ears caught a muted click. The sound stood out among the quiet ambient noises of nature. She hastily grabbed her clothes and threw on her jacket. A modicum of decency restored, she directed her glare to the bushes behind bushes. There were a few splatters of blood there, an oddity in the peaceful courtyard. With a shout, she leapt toward the bush, her body already swelling with size and power as she summoned her titan giant ape martial soul. Someone yelped in the bushes. No, don't hurt me. I just got here. I didn't do it on purpose. A scream filled the air as the figure in the bushes dashed out and away with ghostly steps. Yuan and Yui threw a punch at the beeping tom, sending in their way a blast of air powerful enough to obliterate a boulder. They were as slippery as an eel, figure a blur as they ran through the courtyard. In the end, Yuan and Yui didn't land a single shot, and then she recognized who it was. You bastard. I'm going to kill you. She. The question of why it was always him peeping on her ran through her mind the first second her brain had put 2 and 2 together. Then her fury caught up and before she knew it, she vowed to deliver her wrath. Chapter 482, Wrath. While she was home during break, he found that his cultivation speed had slowed. This made him want to work harder, to improve his cultivation. The thought of Tang Wuling and Yuan and Yui, both of whom had stayed behind on campus, motivated him. He decided to return early to cultivate with the 2, and thought it would be fun to keep it a surprise. He never expected his work ethic to serve trouble to him on a platter. Blood trickled from Shishi's nose as he fled. He wiped it away, struggling to process what just happened. He had walked in on Yuan and Yui in the nude. Although he had only stayed for a fraction of a second, barely long enough to catch the smallest glimpse of her, his own body had betrayed him. Blood had rushed to his head, leaked from his nose, and ruined any chance of a stealthy retreat. Shishi could complain as much as he wanted, could shout his grievances deep inside his heart, but he understood what sort of character Yuan and Yui was. It had taken so much pain and effort just to build and maintain a normal relationship with her, but now he had accidentally peeped on her again. This time, however, Shishi refused to take the blame. She had been washing herself in public. Since she didn't go back to her room to wash up, he could only assume she did so on purpose. He wondered whether talking could settle things peacefully, but that line of thought was quickly derailed by a blast of air that rushed past his head, narrowly missing him. The blast of air exploded a short distance from Shishi, unleashing a mighty gust of force, the full brunt of which he only managed to avoid by using Ghost Shadow Perplexing Step. Having used the secret art so much this past semester, he had grown exceptionally skilled in executing it. His footwork resembled the ethereal movements of a wraith. Yuan and Yui couldn't hope to catch him. Stop and pay for your crimes. The girl snarled. I refuse. Shishi shrieked as he moved even faster. I'm too young to die. In truth, Shishi could just flee the working students' dormitory grounds right now and call for help. Any teacher still on campus, but that would bring disciplinary action upon both of them. Shishi for peeping in Yuan and Yui for assault. Furthermore, news of her being seen naked would spread and bring shame to her. He refrained from making the easy choice, not for his sake but hers. This meant that all he could do was try his best to evade her attacks while staying within the ground of the working student dormitory. So he gritted his teeth and pushed onward. You think you can run? Yuan and Yui hissed. She drummed her chest with both arms, her 4th soul ring lighting up as she activated Devil Titan. Yuan and Yui punched out with both her fists, shooting 2 blasts of air at Shishi. The air streaked toward Shishi, swift as lightning, and collided with each other a few meters away from him. They erupted in an explosive tempest, throwing Shishi off his feet and into the air. She's so strong. Shishi's eyes went wide as he struggled to stabilize himself in the air. It had been quite a few days since he last sparred with her, but she had already grown so much. Yuan and Yui crouched to the ground, then leapt into the air, hurtling toward Shishi like a cannonball. She was upon him in a flash, bearing down upon him. Shishi was just an ant before her tyrannical might. However, Shishi's heart had calmed down during the chase. Outclassed as he was, he still managed to react to the sudden attack. His third soul ring lit up, and he summoned a light dragon clone. In a shimmer of light, Shishi split into two to create two identical Shixis. The two pushed off against each other, narrowly avoiding Yuan and Yui's attack. Yuan and Yui thought her attack was going to hit, but Shishi had managed to dodge it. Ignoring the hiccup in her attack plan, she threw a fist out at each of the Shixis. Booms rang out, and two blasts of air were immediately chasing after the clones. The two clones landed on the roof of the nearby dormitory, then raced away with Ghost Shadow perplexing step and descended back to ground level. Shishi had spent countless hours practicing his control over his clones, and now his efforts were bearing fruit. Although Yuan and Yui's air cannon attacks were powerful, they didn't have a large area of effect, and she couldn't go on a rampage while on the grounds of the working students' dormitory either. Minutes passed, and she still couldn't catch either of the Shixis. Stop and fight me if you have the balls, she shouted. I'd be stupid not to run, he shouted back. After all of this running away, he had grown just as fed up with her as she was with him. He couldn't believe how unreasonable she was being. If any of her air blasts had hit him, his skin would have been torn off. He could only imagine what she would do to him if she caught him. Fine. Keep running. Yuan and Yui suddenly shrunk back to normal size, but her muscular bulk was replaced by a pair of pitch black wings that blossomed from her back. She had exchanged the domineering four-ringed power of her Titan giant ape for the speed of her three-ringed fallen angel martial soul. Yuan and Yui suddenly accelerated, a devilish sword manifesting in her hands. She flew a few circles in the air, sowing seeds of darkness all over the dormitory grounds. Darkness encroached upon the region, enveloping everything with a gloomy stillness. It was the descent of curtain of darkness. Ever since she lost to Tang Wulin's team, Yuan and Yui had thrown herself into her cultivation. Both her martial souls were the best of the best, so she needed to do was get better at using them and her strength would skyrocket. Curtain of darkness took advantage of the angelic characteristics of Yuan and Yui's martial soul to unleash all of its might. A third of her soul power had been spent in an instant, converted into this shroud of dark fog. It was thick and corrosive, a large-scale crowd control attack. Yuan and Yui excelled in both long-range and close-range combat. Her only weakness was her lack of speed, and she had trouble facing agility-type soul masters like Shishi. In order to compensate for this weakness, she used Curtain of Darkness as a brief attack to restrain her opponent. Although it consumed quite a bit of soul power, she just needed it to last long enough for her to close in on her enemy. Then she could switch back to her Titan giant ape to beat down her foe. This was a tactic she hadn't used before, and unfortunately for Shishi, he was to be the first test subject for this combination attack. Both Shixis felt their bodies slow down as if they were trying to run through a quagmire. The encroaching darkness dulled the light that shone from their bodies and drastically decreased their speed. In this murky fog, their steps faltered, and they were no longer able to use Ghost Shadow perplexing step to its fullest potential. Then they saw Yuan and Yui flying toward them. Her body swelled with power as she descended, and in a flash she was back in her Titan giant ape form, smashing her fists down at them. Yuan and Yui understood how Shishi's clones worked. As long as a single clone remained, the main body wouldn't be damaged. There was no reason for her to hold back yet, and she attacked before the shroud of darkness could fade away. Right before her fists connected, Shishi sensed the power behind them drop. She didn't use air cannon either. Is she going easy on me? With no way to evade, Shishi gave in. He stopped trying to run, closed his eyes tight, and braced his arms in front of him to receive the blow. A bitter smile spread across his face. A boom thundered through the dormitory courtyard. Shishi stumbled back a few steps, but he was astonished to discover that he felt no pain. He slowly opened his eyes to see a gallant golden figure standing in front of him. It was Tang Wulin. Boss, Shishi yelled. Tang Wulin sighed. How did you provoke her this time? Chapter 483, The Unlucky Boy. Yuan and Yui stared at Tang Wulin in shock. Golden scales covered his chest, shoulders, and right arm. He held Yuan and Yui's fist in his scaled hand. Although she held back at the last second, he had stopped her punch far too easily. He had grown even stronger. Shishi, on the other hand, gazed at Tang Wulin in admiration. His was broad and imposing, and it instilled a sense of safety into Shishi. Tang Wulin sighed. Could you stop them now, Yuanan? Help me understand what's happening here. How did Shishi offend you this time? This is all your fault. Yuan and Yui growled. She shot a glare at Tang Wulin and ran away. Tang Wulin turned to Shishi, his golden scales fading away as he gave him a curious look. What did you do now? Explain from the beginning. Why is she so mad? I saw something I shouldn't have seen, Shishi said with a strained smile. He explained exactly what happened without omitting a single detail. As Shishi recounted the events, a nervous expression formed on Tang Wulin's face. It seemed some blame really did lay with him. To keep her promise to guard him, Yuan and Yui had chosen to risk washing herself in the courtyard, and Shishi happened to return while she was doing so. It was actually hard to say who was at fault here. Unlike the previous incident in which Shishi looked into Yuan and Yui's room on his own, this time was just a coincidence. It wouldn't be fair to lay all the blame on Shishi. All three of them shared the blame this time. Soon after Shishi finished explaining things to Tang Wulin, Yuan and Yui returned fully clothed. Her face was ashen, and her gaze was glued to Shishi. It held a ferocity that could tear him to pieces. This was the second time he had peeked on her. The second time. She refused to believe that was mere coincidence. I'm going to beat that bastard to death. Shishi stared back at her in abject awe. Tang Wulin had no choice but to step in to mediate. Yuanan, I'm really sorry about what happened. It's all my fault. This happened because you promised to guard me. He scratched his cheek awkwardly. Shishi didn't mean to peep on you. He wanted to surprise us by returning early. He only just got here, so he barely caught a glimpse of you before you noticed him. Shishi, hurry up and apologize to her. No matter how Tang Wulin framed things, Shishi was still in the wrong. He had violated Yuan and Yui's privacy. Shishi bowed deeply, his head low. I'm sorry. It's my fault. I shouldn't have returned without telling you. I barely saw anything, I promise. Although Shishi said this, Yuan and Yui's bare womanly charms were seared into his mind. He had been enchanted by her tempting figure bathing in the sunlight. He harbored no dark desires. He simply admired her beauty. Even after she transformed into her Titan giant ape form, he found her stunning. Yuan and Yui fought to control her ragged breathing as she held up 2 fingers. That's 2 times now. 2. He's an agility type. Who knows when he arrived? How could I possibly trust him when he says he only got a glimpse of me? And even if he were telling the truth, a glimpse is still unacceptable. Shishi remained silent, maintaining his deep bow. Yuanan, I really am sorry. Tang Wulin said hastily. This is my fault. As an apology, how about I give you a spirit alloy with a harmony rate of 85% or higher? No charge. No way. Yuan and Yui shouted him down. Are you saying my body is only worth a single spirit alloy? Tang Wulin smiled awkwardly. Then what do you want to do about this? We aren't adults yet, and Shishi truly didn't peep on purpose. It was just an unfortunate coincidence. Tell us what you want to happen, and we'll do our best to make it so. Yuan and Yui glared at him. Of course a guy attracted to other guys wouldn't understand the value of a girl's body. I just want. Wait. Tang Wulin raised a hand to interrupt her. Wait just a minute now. What did you say? Yuan and Yui realized what she said and averted her gaze. Sorry, I shouldn't bring up your sexual preferences here. My bad. But still, hold on. Tang Wulin shouted this time. Where did you get the idea that I like guys? Who told you that? Stunned, she slowly raised a finger toward Shishi. He did. He said you and Yui sang you. Tang Wulin whirled on Shishi, a grim look in his eyes. Huh? Shishi looked at Yuan and Yui in astonishment. Didn't I explain things to you? That was just a misunderstanding. Tang Wulin clenched his fists, then turned back to Yuan and Yui. You thought I was into guys this whole time? Yuan and Yui finally picked up on the fact that something was amiss. She looked back to Shishi and barked. When the hell did you explain anything to me? Just listen to me. Shishi sputtered, shaking his head frantically. It was all a misunderstanding. Desperate to save himself, he hastily explained what really happened between Tang Wulin and Yue Zhangyu. Tang Wulin clenched his fists even tighter. He tilted his head as he stared at Shishi. Not only did you cause a misunderstanding, you spread it as a rumor too. Why don't you tell the rest of the academy while you're at it? Yuanan, I understand what you're feeling now, so tell me, who's beating his ass first? Me or you? No way. Boss, I made a mistake. I just forgot to explain things to Yuanan. Shishi begged. He no longer even entertained the idea of running. With both Tang Wulin and Yuan and Yui working together, he had no hope of escape. Tang Wulin flashed a brilliant smile at Shishi, grabbed him, and pulled him to Yuan and Yui, maintaining his smile the entire time. It's unfortunate that this guy is such a bastard. I won't try to protect him anymore. He's all yours. Tang Wuling pushed Shishi toward Yuan and Yui before returning to their room. Yuan and Yui locked eyes with Shishi. She raised her hand and made a fist. Shishi shut his eyes tight. His face contorted in fear. He didn't move an inch. He blamed himself for seeing what he shouldn't have. He was prepared to face her wrath. Yet even after a minute of torturous waiting, he didn't feel the pain of fist connecting with flesh. All he heard was the cries of birds in the distance. Shishi slowly opened his eyes, one at a time. Yuan and Yui wasn't facing him anymore. She was running back to her room. He could see something twinkling under the sun as she fled. It was a tear falling through the air. He moved to catch it, blurring from one spot to another, and it landed in his palm. He had no real reason to do this, but the sight of it made his heart throb with pain. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have come back early. Shishi returned to his room in a daze. When he entered, he saw Tang Wuling sitting cross-legged on his bed. Boss, all of this, what's done is done. Tang Wuling interrupted him. You're just unlucky. There's no point piling more misfortune onto you. So, she didn't beat you. Shishi shook his head and looked down at his feet, forcing out a bitter laugh. I would have preferred it if she did. Instead, she cried. Tang Wuling looked Shishi up and down, examining his full-on friend. Do you like her? Huh? Shishi looked up, his mind clearly blank. Moments later, he nodded slowly. But it's hopeless. After all this, there's no way she would like me back. I don't understand the ways of the heart, but I do know that, no matter what happens, there is always a chance as long as you try. Give up, and your chances are zero. Think about that. I'm going to get some food. Shishi watched Tang Wuling walk out the door before laying down on his own bed in a daze. The image of Yuan and Yui's figure flashed through his mind. He remembered each and every one of her frowns and smiles. She was already deeply imprinted on his heart. He leapt to his feet, ran out the door, and found the basin Yuan and Yui had been using to wash herself. He also found her dirty clothes laying on the ground and threw them into the basin. Then he grabbed the other basin filled with water and cleaned up the courtyard. Once the courtyard was neat and tidy, he washed Yuan and Yui's dirty clothes and hung them up to dry. He brought the basins back to where she usually kept them, surprised to discover just how much he knew about her. Chapter 484, The Chipped Tooth Man. All who remained on the working student dormitory grounds were Yuan and Yui and Shishi, the former in her room and the latter still loitering in the courtyard. Shishi stared holes at her door, biting his lip and clenching his fist. Wuling is right. There's a chance if I try, but none if I sit around hoping. He steeled his resolve, walked to the door, and knocked. Yuanan, I wash your clothes for you. They're hanging to dry in the courtyard. You can go grab them later. Caution peppered his voice. Not a sound was heard from within the room. Several moments later, Shishi spoke again. Yuanan, Captain went to get some food. We're the only ones left here now. Can I talk to you? I want to be honest. Screw off. Shishi winced at first, but immediately settled with slapping his cheeks twice. Determination glinted in his eyes. I'll just say it from here then. The first time I saw you naked, I was stunned. I didn't see anything clearly, and before I knew it I was beaten into a pulp by you. But if there was one thing I realized at that moment, it was that you were a girl. So I decided to help you clean the place every day. Sweep the floor, wash the windows, dust things off. I didn't know what else I could do for you. Inside her room, Yuan and Yui's rage burned hotter as Shishi began his monologue. The longer she listened, however, the more she surrendered to an unseen force, standing up from her bed and staring at the door in a daze. Then helping you clean the dorm just became a habit for me. I felt uneasy whenever I couldn't tidy up. Honestly, I don't regret what happened. If not, I wouldn't have known that you're a girl. You're so beautiful. Being ignorant of that would be the greatest mistake of my life, and I'll gladly receive any punishment to avoid it. Later on, I came to understand that my habit wasn't tied to cleaning. It was just an excuse to see you every day. My heart ached on the days I couldn't. It's for that same reason I returned early to campus. He sighed. Originally, the plan was to show you guys how much stronger I got when I came back after cultivating earnestly at home, but I just couldn't focus. I could never bring my mind off Shrek. I wanted to return as soon as possible the entire time. I've only realized the truth recently. I didn't miss Shrek. I missed you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for peeping on you again, but I really didn't do it on purpose, and I really only got a glimpse. Although I did get a clearer look than the time before, it was still only a glimpse. Yuan and Yui couldn't bear it anymore. Her fury bubbled out of her throat. Go to hell. Shishi coughed, then continued. I shouldn't have seen it, but as a man, I feel responsible. So let me take responsibility for you. Yuanan, please marry me. Be my wife, won't you? Silence descended. Shishi's heart raced, so much that he could hear it pounding in his ears. He swallowed. Yuanan, I think we're quite a match while you're in your normal form. I think I'm pretty handsome too. We're still young though, so we can just get engaged for now. I can get approval from my family at this moment, and then we can get married for real after we graduate. I promise to take responsibility and take care of you. The door burst open. Yuan and Yui stomped out. At last, Shishi saw a beautiful smile on her lips. Even with her eyes red and swollen, there was no denying the beauty of her smile. Yuanan. Shishi stepped forward. I'll help you on your way out. Her expression suddenly changed. Gone was her smile. In its place a grim mask. Her body swelled with muscle as she grabbed him by the lapels of his shirt. Flexing every muscle in her body to draw up maximum power, she threw him into the air. Shishi streaked through the skies like a shooting star out of the working student dormitory grounds, his springs trailing his shrinking form. With that, Yuan and Yui shrank back to her normal size. She glanced at the clothes Shishi washed, then took them down and returned to her room. She slammed the door shut behind her. A towering tree in Spirit Ice Plaza shook. Shishi fell through its branches, fortunate enough to have them cushion his fall. He landed face first, shooting up to his feet a moment later. Holy shit, that scared me, he exclaimed, gasping for breath. He scratched his head awkwardly. He didn't know if it was right for him to like Yuan and Yui or not. Such a violent girl. Whoa. A flying man. Interesting. Someone said joyfully in the distance. Huh. There's still people on campus. They didn't leave for vacation. Shishi looked up to see a middle-aged man smiling at him, his build as average as they came. He wore his hair short, and his small eyes shone with warmth. A toothy grin that wasn't quite whole, a front tooth chipped in half. He swept the floor with a broom, giving the appearance of a neighborly uncle. Uncle, who are you? Shishi asked. The man's face froze. Uncle? Am I that old already? Boy, you were really quick on your feet just now. Are you an agility type? Shishi chuckled. Uncle, you really do deserve to be Shrek's janitor. You can even tell I'm an agility type. A mischievous smile played across the man's face. You shouldn't underestimate people. Boy, how about we make a bet? What bet? I'll stand right here. If you can snatch this broom from me within 10 minutes, you win. Otherwise, it's my win. Shishi shook his head. No thanks. There's no point. I'll bet you 100 contribution points. Even us janitors get points, the man said. Shishi smirked. Uncle, now you're just gifting me 100 points. You work a hard job, so I'll still have to say no. The man's face soured. Huh. I wanted to win some points from you for breakfast. I didn't think you wouldn't even have the balls to accept such a small bet. Shishi felt his chest tighten. It was an easy bet anyway. He simply had to snatch the broom from the man's hands while the man stood still. Fine. I'll take you on. Shishi's figure blurred the moment the words left his mouth. He reached the man in an instant, his hand stretching for the broom. After spending so much time with Tang Wuling, he had learned a few cunning tricks. Whoa. The man cried out, letting go of the broom. But this act caused Shishi's hand to miss the handle. The broom fell onto the man's toes. Shishi stepped in and stooped to let her grab it. The man turned, the broom sticking to his foot as if glued on. Shishi missed again. Huh. Shishi's eyes went wide. He realized now that this was no ordinary man. His competitive spirit was stoked. His figure blurred again and his speed doubled, his daggers materializing in his hands. The man kicked the broom back into his grasp. He faced Shishi with a huge grin. Come on. The clock is ticking. Shishi remained silent. Using Ghost Shadow perplexing step, he surrounded the man with his afterimages. It was near impossible to pick out the real Shishi. However, the broom came alive in the man's hands. It jumped, danced, and twisted around, avoiding Shishi's grasp each time, no matter the angle of attack. Through it all the man didn't move a single step, his lower body practically motionless. Chapter 485. The rising sun of the West Mountain. I refuse to believe this. She cried. His third soul ring lit up, a clone splitting from his body. Now he controlled 4 hands at once to snatch the broom. Not a single crack marred the man's smile. He gently swayed in place, moving the broom out of Shishi's grasp by hairs with each time. For a while, their figures overlapped as Shishi continued his assault, and the man easily evaded. There was still plenty of time left in their bet. Shishi drew out all of his strength, pushing his speed and control to the max. Yet even with both clones moving fast enough to blur, even after he tried every trick in the book, the broom always eluded him, swerving beyond his fingers at the last moment. Shishi clicked his tongue. At this point it was clear as night and day that it wouldn't be easy to win against the seemingly harmless man, but he couldn't admit defeat yet. He refused to. As long as there was time left, he still had a chance. Time's up. In a blur, the broom struck both Shishi and his clone on the head. The clone and original fused back together, and Shishi groaned in pain as he gasped for breath. Who sent you flying earlier? The man asked, brushing aside their bet for the moment. Shishi's expression froze. Not a word left his lips. Unlike the man, he was still fixated on the bet. He could have sworn that the broom had been in his hands several times, but in the blink of an eye, it disappeared. Well, regardless of who threw you, it's obvious that your skill doesn't match up to theirs. Passable speed, but compared to your peers, your skill certainly leaves much to be desired. You won't be able to keep up like that. The issue isn't with your stance, but the moment you strike, you react too slowly, so your target has plenty of time to attack, counter, you name it. He shook his head. This also means your lethal power isn't enough. For an agility type, lethality is even more important than speed. Do you understand? The man said, all smiles. Shishi studied him, eyes narrowing. Agility types are all about fast attacks. Why would how lethal I am be more important? Because attacking is the core of everything. Speed allows you to catch up to your target, but what's the point if you can't take them out? With all those mechas and battle armor out there, who doesn't have a strong defense nowadays? Your attack power isn't enough. All you have is speed. Raise your dagger for me. In his shock, Shishi had forgotten to withdraw his martial soul. Without properly understanding or registering the order, Shishi's body obeyed and held up his light dragon dagger. A breath later, and the man's figure twisted out of sight. Shishi missed it completely. All he felt was a prickling pain in his shoulder and a light push on his dagger. When he whipped his gaze to the direction of his pain, hungry and curious to see what had just transpired, his eyes went wide. A strand of hair pierced through his dagger like the world's most flexible needle, caught and impaled into the flesh of his shoulder. W, what happened? That's just hair. Confused or otherwise, there was no denying reality. The erect hair loosened and went limp, pouring a bit of soul power into his dagger. Shishi easily destroyed the hair, but his shoulder still stung. He couldn't fathom what had just happened. Lethality, speed, and power are all related. Once your speed reaches a certain level and you can concentrate all your power into a single point, lethality will naturally follow. Boy, you still have a long ways to go. Convinced and won over. The beat of excitement drumming in his heart, Shishi said. See, can you teach me? The man shrugged. Pay up for the bet first. I'll teach you for a bit after. Okay. Shishi immediately took out his contribution points card and paid the man 100 points. Since you just got back, we'll start tomorrow morning. I'll be waiting for you here. Got it. I'm Shishi by the way. How should I address you? The man smiled. I'm Liang Xiao. You can just call me Big Brother Liang. Some people also call me the rising sun of the West Mountain. It's because my family lives on the west side of a mountain, and back then, we had a super handsome guy in our family. He moved to the city later on and became a superstar. All of the people in my village say I look like him, so they started calling me that. Shishi fought hard to keep a straight face. Big Brother Liang, honestly speaking, there's a bit of a gap between you and being handsome. Huh? Isn't it just a small difference though? Shishi glanced at Liang Xiao's balding head. Also, you should stop using hair to stab people. I doubt it's any good for you. After a moment of silence, Liang Xiao shouted, serves you right to get thrashed. Tang Wolin, famished as he was, decided to curb his hunger at the noodle shop Shu Lizzie had recommended. According to his teammate, the noodles were absolutely divine, especially the ones lathered with a thick meat sauce. He recalled the conflict between Yuan and Yui and Shishi earlier. As soon as he had awakened from breaking the fourth seal, his feet brought him to the side of all the commotion. When he had stopped Yuan and Yui's flying punch, he felt the power coursing within him. His blood essence had surged through his body like a dense river. Although it had cost him 4 unbelievably expensive spirit items to break the fourth seal, he could tell by his astronomical increase in strength that they were well worth the price. But on this exact moment, Tang Wolin hungered. It clawed at him. The energy of the Golden Dragon King, rather than grant him relief from this, only stoked his hunger. He could tell that his meridian channels had grown wider following the breaking of the fourth seal. All the more reason for more nutrients to fill the new space. Tang Wolin's soul power had grown denser as well. As it condensed, the space occupied in his dantian had shrunk, allowing him additional space to do as he willed. In light of this, he concluded that he needed to redouble his efforts. At his current cultivation speed, he feared he might not gain his fourth ring by the time he turned 15. Improving the speed of his cultivation was a must, for he couldn't become a 6th-rank blacksmith until he had the foundation of a soul ancestor. All he could do was work even harder. After devouring 10 poles, Tang Wolin stretched his body, his mind wandering back to Shishi and Yuan and Yui. He couldn't help but crack a smile. Those two really do have an affinity with each other. Well, whatever. I'll just let them sort things out themselves. Although Shishi's luck was horrible, he still had many avenues he could use to settle the problem. Tang Wolin was confident the two would turn out just fine given enough time and space. Tang Wolin took out his communicator and called Wu Zhangkong. Are you back? Wu Zhangkong answered the call in his usual cold voice. Tang Wolin felt himself relax. Yes, I've returned to campus. Teacher Wu, when should I visit you in the inner court? Tang Wolin asked. His vacation was already halfway done, but he still had much to do. You can come right now. Just head to the inner court and I'll be there to receive you. Okay. After quickly paying his bill, Tang Wolin did just that. Eager he was to test his limits now that his blood essence had strengthened, and he had gained a second blood essence soul ring. Hopefully the ring granted him a ranged ability. Standing by the gates to the inner court, Tang Wolin heard only the occasional gentle breeze and his own thoughts. The gates were open, revealing a crooked path leading inward. Not a single person stood guard. It appeared easy for anyone to just waltz right in, but Tang Wolin knew that it was anything but so. Shrek Academy was a holy site for soul masters and a den of dragons for enemies. I wonder if Big Sis Molan is awake yet. The Holy Spirit Douluo really is amazing at healing. When will I be as strong as her? His thoughts lay with the Holy Spirit Douluo's powerful soul rings. The sight of 6 black and 3 red rings had sent tremors down to the depths of his heart. He was still an insignificant boy when compared to her, a person who stood at the peak. He felt his heart calm, his mind relaxed with every step farther down the crooked path. A gentle breeze weaved through the trees, a clean scent refreshing his mind. His clothes soon began to stick to his skin. He was nearing Sea God's Lake. He walked past several sculptures, the legendary Shrek 7 monsters of ages past, and rounded the curve onto the lakeside. The lake glittered under the sun, the waters clear to the bottom. A few aquatic plants sprouted from the wet dirt, breathing life into the lake. Just as Tang Wolin was about to make a call to Wu Zhangkong, his eyes caught the figure of a boat embarking from Sea God's Island. The boat slowly floated toward the shore, an impassive Wu Zhangkong at its bow. He was dressed in his usual white robes with his hands folded behind him. A light breeze picked up the ends of his robe and hair. A mystical aesthetic. Damn. Teacher Wu is handsome. Those white robes look so cool. Tang Wolin stared, entranced. I need to get a set of white robes in the future too. I'll get some as soon as I graduate. The boat slid up to the shore right in front of Tang Wolin. Get on, Wu Zhangkong said. Once both of his feet were on the boat, Wu Zhangkong urged it to float back to the island with a wave of soul power. I heard about what happened on the train. You met an evil soul master? Wu Zhangkong asked. Yes. They're sinister people. You can't compare them to ordinary soul masters at all. If you meet one in the future, be on full alert, so that you're aware you've been marked by their organization. Don't leave campus for any light reason, and if you do, tell me first. Tang Wolin nodded. Teacher Wu, mark my words. One day I'll be strong enough that I won't fear the evil soul masters ever again. A fire lit in his heart at the mention of them. He wouldn't forgive those bastards who treated life as lightly as grass. Chapter 486, The Silver-Haired Beauty. The moment Tang Wuling set foot on Sea God's Island, the sharp edge of his determination, while still present, slightly dulled, calmed by his surroundings, he felt invigorated, the air thick with energy, his blue silver grass perked up, tendrils uncoiling and stretching to take it all in. Giant mulberry trees towered over the heavens. Their trunks were thick and weathered by time, their branches holding up a shield of leaves that protected Sea God's Island from weather, be it rain or thunder. It was Tang Wuling's second time here. Still, his experience was different from the last. He could peer deeper into the mysteries of the island. Perhaps it was because he had reached the spirit sea realm and his perception abilities increased. Tang Wuling followed Wu Zhangkong into the heart of the island. As his eyes wandered around, he noticed another boat approaching the shore. A girl stood in the boat, her silver hair waving in the wind. She looked about 13 or 14 years old, dressed in red uniform. As a stronger breeze picked up the bottom of her dress and her flowing hair, his breath was taken away. She's pretty. If Tang Wuling had to admit it, he was quite easy on the eyes himself, and his teacher, Wu Zhangkong, was the definition of an icy prince. When he laid eyes on this girl, however, any sort of immunity to beauty he might have carried withered into ash, and he found himself lost in a heat of infatuation toward her. Gentle silver eyes, slender legs. Simply too charming, a fairy of the lake. Not a single flaw could be found in her features, as if her face had been carefully sculpted by the greatest artist in the world. Despite her youthful appearance, she had the makings of a woman already, curves rounding out her figure, an elegant air around her. Tang Wuling could hardly piece together thoughts at the sight of the girl, let alone speak. Red was the color of the inner court, her uniform marking her as a member of those elites. But didn't Chu Lizzie and New Zealand get booted out for not being battle armor masters? Is she actually a one-word battle armor master already? No way. Because the footsteps behind Wu Zhangkong went quiet, he paused in his steps and looked back. For his efforts, he was given the unseemly image of Tang Wuling's dumbstruck face. He moved to Tang Wuling's side in a flash, hands chopping his student's head. Tang Wuling yelped, waking from his stupor. Teacher Wu. Wu Zhangkong followed Tang Wuling's gaze to the silver-haired girl, then angled his gaze back to his student. What are you staring for? Is she an inner court disciple? Wu Zhangkong nodded. Disbelief colored Tang Wuling's face. But doesn't the inner court only accept battle armor masters? That rule was just implemented, right? Does that mean she's a one-word battle armor master? Wu Zhangkong shot a look at him. She isn't. She's special. How come? She's the Pavilion Master's only direct disciple. Of course she's special. There's no need to doubt her potential. She will be one of the continent's powerhouses in the future. So the Pavilion Master decided to take her in and nurture her. Tang Wuling's eyes went wide. Naturally, he knew what the Sea God's Pavilion was. It was the organization that stood at the very top of Shrek Academy, administering the Academy's laws and choosing its direction. He had heard many rumors about what sort of person the Pavilion Master was, but not once had he received a concrete answer. The identity of the Pavilion Master was shrouded in secrecy. Not even Wu Zhangkong mentioned the Pavilion Master save for this time. Yet despite not knowing anything about this illustrious figure, Tang Wuling still harbored deep reverence for them. There was no doubt in his mind that anyone who could hold such a position was powerful and worthy of respect. Let's go, said Wu Zhangkong. He spun on his heel and continued onward. The girl's boat docked off in the distance and she made her way into the island on another path. Her figure quickly shrank into the horizon, disappearing with her long strides. I don't know why, but she seems familiar. Tang Wuling furrowed his brow, bothered by a strange feeling he couldn't place, an incessant nagging in his inner thoughts. But in the end, he hurried after Wu Zhangkong. When Tang Wuling caught up to him, he asked, Teacher Wu, what's the name of that inner court disciple? Wu Zhangkong glanced at him. And just how old are you again? You're too young to get distracted by such things. Focus on cultivating. Tang Wuling pouted. Teacher Wu, I'm not like she just seemed familiar. Maybe I've seen her somewhere before. All men think a pretty girl looks familiar when they first lay eyes on them. Wu Zhangkong wasn't willing to entertain Tang Wuling, cutting off any advancement of the inquiry. His voice clipped. Discouraged, Tang Wuling could only follow in silence until they arrived at Zhuoxi's small house. Shen Yi was meditating cross-legged on a stone bench in the front courtyard. Tang Wuling could vaguely make out dark green streams of air converging around her. Her soul power fluctuations thrummed with steady power. Yet Tang Wuling also found a sense of comfort in it. He felt an affinity for her since they both possessed plant-type martial souls. Since Shen Yi rarely revealed her strength, the only thing that Tang Wuling could pick out was that her martial soul was in some way related to vines. But he did know that she wasn't one to be taken lightly. She couldn't be. She was a teacher at Shrek Academy. At the very least, she was a two-word battle armor master. Wu Zhangkong led Tang Wuling into the house. To Tang Wuling's surprise, Zhuoxi was sitting in the living room. Zhuoxi's face lit up the moment he saw Tang Wuling, a warm smile forming on his lips. He beckoned for Tang Wuling to come over. Tang Wuling advanced with quick steps and bent into a slight bow for his grandteacher. Enough with that. No need to be so polite. You've shown enough respect already. Zhuoxi was pleased with his grandiscal. He had watched Tang Wuling's team's match against the Imperial Sun Moonsol Engineering Academy and had only words of praise for how the team handled the match. More specifically, how they handled facing two soul fusion skills and sealed their own victory. That had been no easy feat, but his feelings of approval didn't end there. A few days earlier, the Holy Spirit Douluo had informed him of how much she liked Tang Wuling's personality. That was when Zhuoxi knew for certain his grand disciple was a treasure, a youth with a kind heart and a sound mind on how to show respect. Thank you for the praise, grandteacher. Tang Wuling smiled. You taught me Dragon Shocks the Heavens last time. I've mastered it, so may you teach me another skill now. Tang Wuling clasped his hands together, trying to calm his fidgeting fingers. He was eager to learn more. Dragon Shocks the Heavens helped him so much in the past, and he knew for a fact it would continue to help him in the future. In fact, it was only second to the mysterious heaven method in terms of effectiveness. He had high expectations for what he would gain from the next skill. Zhuoxi nodded. No need to rush. Of course I have more to teach you, but first, show me your Dragon Shocks the Heavens. Let's move to the courtyard. Tang Wuling had no complaints, obediently following Zhuoxi out. This was a good chance to test how much stronger he grew after breaking the fourth seal as well. Zhuoxi walked to the center of the courtyard and beckoned to Tang Wuling. Come. Give me your best Dragon Shocks the Heavens. Yes. Tang Wuling positioned himself 10 meters from Zhuoxi, spectating from the side were Wu Zhangkong and Shen Yi, who had awoken by the time the grand disciple and grand teacher pair stepped foot into the courtyard. The two teachers understood Tang Wuling's strength well. They had watched him mature with their own eyes since his arrival at Shrek Academy. They had witnessed his explosive growth after breaking the third seal. Although his soul power was hardly special, his combat prowess and leadership skills could be summed up in one word: exceptional. Chapter 487, the second blood essence soul skill, blue silver grass. Tang Wuling's current greatest weakness. It limited the speed of his soul power's growth, and the effect rippled out, stunting every other aspect of his abilities. Fortunately, he was still young. He could use other methods to increase his soul power if his growth was lacking by the time he turned 18. Neither Wu Zhangkong nor Shen Yi were worried about Tang Wuling's chances of entering the inner court. The boy was the youngest fifth-rank blacksmith in all of history. That alone was enough to permit him entry. Moreover, his blacksmithing skills made it easy for him to become a one-word battle armor master. He already had his gauntlet, so it was only a matter of time now before he completed a full set. Tang Wuling took in a deep breath, filling his lungs with the refreshing air of Sea God's Island. His blood essence flowed in reverse as he used golden dragon shocks the heavens. Waves of might rolled off him, golden lines flaring to life from head to toe. His right arm swelled with strength, scales of the same bright gold manifesting upon it, transforming his hand into a claw. The scales spread to his shoulders, his chest, then up his neck. Wu Zhangkong was familiar with Tang Wuling's use of blood essence. He's like always on his hopeful student, but when he saw the scales crawl up to cover Tang Wuling's neck as well, he nearly forgot to breathe. His blood essence became stronger. At that moment, two golden rings rose from beneath Tang Wuling. He straightened his back, seeming a couple centimeters taller than before, steady as a mountain. He shone a brilliant gold. The air whipped up into a frenzy around him. His blood essence roared like a raging river, audible even to Wu Zhangkong and Shen Yi a distance away. Zhuoxi watched with bright eyes. He had high expectations for Tang Wuling to begin with, but now the boy was blasting past them. A second golden ring? Didn't he only have one last time? Just how far will his bloodline go? Tang Wuling's body flashed a brighter gold, his first golden ring lighting up. Strength surged through his swelling muscles. The golden lines on his body transformed into fine scales, thinner than the rest. Apart from his face, the scales covered his entire form. Dou, golden dragon body. This soul skill further empowered his blood essence. Then his second golden ring shone. Eager he was to traverse in newfound territory, to test out the abilities of the second ring. From Tang Wulin's body burst forth a ringing of metal, and once again did his scales shine more resplendently for a moment. Each and every scale a miniature mirror, dazzling in the light. Chawoshi, Wu Zhangkong, and Shen Yu remained glued to the sight, jaws hanging. What did Wulin do? Why all of his scales shining? In truth, not even Tang Wulin knew what was happening. Rather, he had been too wrapped up with investigating his second blood essence skill. He had tried concentrating, taking in the sensation of the whole transformation, had concluded it definitely wasn't a ranged attack, and nothing happened to his soul power after activating the skill. Instead, the skill consumed a large portion of his blood essence reserves, enough to weaken golden dragon shocks the heavens. Then, just 2 seconds after he had activated the skill, his scales dimmed and returned to their original state. There was no other change. Is that it? Is that my second blood essence skill? All it does is make me shiny. What am I? A peacock. He gritted his teeth. I might look good while my scales shine, but what good is that? Tang Wulin held his hands into fists, on the verge of tears. He had looked forward to his second blood essence soul skill for so long, had wished and hoped and dreamt of it, but when time came to actually activate the skill, it wasn't a ranged attack at all. It wasn't even anything of value, just made him shine from head to toe like a beacon. Even so, there was no way he could just stop midway through golden dragon shocks the heavens. He needed to show Chawoshi's progress. Fortunately, breaking the fourth seal had strengthened his blood essence. He still had enough energy to unleash the technique. A dragon's roar thundered. He thrust his palms out, the phantom of a giant dragon's head rushing out. It was clearer and more visible than ever before. Chawoshi knitted his brows, a shiver running down his spine. He could feel his own martial soul trembling in fear before Tang Wulin. He threw a curtain of fire to shield himself from the rage of the phantom dragon head. Shockwaves rumbled through the courtyard, leaves raining down from the shaking trees. Tang Wulin's blood essence, turbulent like a storm within him. 3 waves of light crashed into the curtain of fire, each resonating with the last to reach new heights. The curtain of fire shimmered under the bombardment. Several seconds later, the assault stopped. Gold receded from the air and the roaring dragon calmed. When the dust settled, a pleased smile danced along Chawoshi's face. Not bad. You've mastered about 30% of dragon shocks the heavens. Keep up the good work. I can teach you something new now. The reverse blood essence flow of dragon shocks the heavens was only the first step. For Chawoshi had created the 9 arts of the Scarlet Dragon, and each art drew out the full potential of blood essence. Although Chawoshi didn't say it, he was beyond satisfied with Tang Wulin. The boy's blood essence is even stronger than mine when I was his age. His bloodline is also superior to my Scarlet Dragon. He's a suitable heir to my techniques. He had been searching for a good disciple to inherit his techniques for years, but he never expected to find one as perfect as Tang Wulin. The boy soaked up all of his teachings like a sponge. Tang Wulin earnestly listened to Chawoshi as the elderly man lectured him, but gloom had settled on his heart after testing his second blood essence soul skill. He couldn't understand what to make of it. It was absolutely useless if all it did was make him shine, especially with how much strength it consumed. He resolved to go ask old Tang about it later. Chawoshi's lecture went on for an hour before letting Tang Wulin off to cultivate. See God's Island was saturated with the natural energies of the world and ancient plants. As such, it was a perfect cultivation ground for Tang Wulin. As Tang Wulin meditated, he called out for old Tang, eager to have his questions answered, but there was only silence. Is old Tang on strike? Tang Wulin smiled wryly to himself. Forget about it. If he's not answering, then he's not answering. I'll figure things out on my own. Tang Wulin tried using the skill again, but apart from shining for 2 seconds, nothing happened. His attack power didn't increase nor was his blood essence empowered. All the skill did was consume a vast amount of blood essence, double that of golden dragon body. It seemed to weaken him in the middle of battle for no gain. He was vexed. The only thing that stopped him from going crazy was the new teachings Chawoshi imparted on him. Under Chawoshi's guidance, he rapidly progressed in refining his golden dragon shocks the heavens. He practiced until the sun fell and night took its place. Dinner time. Just as Tang Wulin expected, Chawoshi had handled dinner. The food laid out on the table was luxurious and highly nutritious. The black steamed buns Tang Wulin had eaten last time were present as well. He didn't bother standing on ceremony and dug in, greedily devouring the food. Chawoshi got to witness a storm ravaging his dining table for the first time. He had asked Shen Yu to prepare more food than usual, but the force of nature that was Tang Wulin's stomach showed no signs of satisfaction. Common sense couldn't be applied to the boy's appetite. His appetite had grown with the breaking of the fourth seal, and he had tired himself practicing golden dragon shocks the heavens today as well. His hunger was unstoppable. It was unbelievable. Wulin, do you have enough money to sustain your eating habits? Shen Yi asked in concern. Tang Wulin smirked. Teacher Shen, you don't have to worry about that. As long as I don't leave Shrek, Ella Feng promised to cover all of my food expenses. That was a condition for me to become his disciple. Chawoshi perked a brow. That penny-pinching Feng Wu would actually be that generous? Knowing how much his grandteacher liked him, Tang Wulin didn't restrain himself. He grinned wide. Yep, I'm just that amazing. Grandteacher, when I visited Heaven Dou City and studied blacksmithing under my uncle master, he told me that as soon as I got my 4th soul ring, I would be a 6th rank blacksmith. Chawoshi's gaze hardened. 4 rings and you'll hit 6th rank. So you're saying you'll be a 6th rank blacksmith and feed you some heavenly treasures right now? Chapter 488, face slapping. Tang Wulin shook his head. Probably, but it wouldn't be good for me as a soul master to take a shortcut. Chawoshi pressed his lips together, his expression stony. All right. But Wulin, just don't bite off more than you can chew, especially when it comes to cultivation. I don't know who your uncle master is, but you don't need to take his words too seriously. Blacksmithing is the hardest of the 4 main professions. The difference becomes even more apparent when you get to the later ranks. That's also why there's only one divine blacksmith in the world right now. You need to focus on establishing a firm foundation. Don't put too much faith in the praise others give you. Understood? Yes. Tang Wulin dared not say anything more to Chawoshi's displeased face. Suddenly, a barking laugh sounded. Chawoshi, you all fool. I have arrived. In walked Feng Wu. Tang Wulin wasted no time in standing up and bowing. Teacher. Feng Wu waved him off. You stinking brat. You should have visited me first when you got back instead of this nest for old codgers. What can a clueless fool like that teach you? A loud slam. Tang Wulin whipped his head to the direction of the sound, eyes widening at the small dent on the tabletop beneath Chawoshi's palm. You crazy bastard. You trying to start shit? How am I clueless? You better watch your mouth in front of my granddisciple. Don't you dare spite me or I'll kick your ass out of here. Feng Wu snorted. You don't need to bullshit with me. Tell me, do you know who Wulin's uncle master is? Chawoshi scowled. How would I know who his uncle master is? Probably just one of your senior brothers. Wait, do you even have any? Nope. In fact, Wulin's uncle master is a generation younger than us. Then was I wrong? A talented kid like Wulin doesn't need excessive praise. I'll beat that guys as if he's leading Wulin astray. Now enough with this farce. If you don't have anything important to say or do then leave. I'm losing my appetite just looking at you. Chawoshi said, mouth twisted into a scowl. Feng Wu smirked. I'll leave when I want to leave. Right after I give you a good slap to the face. By the way, Wulin has another teacher too. His name's Mu Chen. You know of him, right? He took a step forward, not even blinking in the face of Chawoshi's irritation. He was the president of the Eastie Blacksmiths Association branch and an 8th rank Saint blacksmith. He has a senior brother who is the uncle master Wulin was talking about. If I remember correctly, his name was Zhenhua or something like that. Right, Wulin. Tang Wulin looked between his teacher, then to his grandteacher. He didn't dare utter a word. So what about this Zhenhua? He's Jew. Chawoshi's eyes went wide, his breathing ragged. Zhenhua? Divine blacksmith Zhenhua. If it's that Zhenhua, then who else could judge a blacksmith better than him? Feng Wu patted his own cheeks, feeling for the upward tug of his lips, the muscles forming his cheeks. Ooh. Now that feels good. How about your face? Old Chawo. Does it hurt? Screw off. Chawoshi shouted, sending a punch at Feng Wu. Feng Wu chuckled, catching the fist in his hand effortlessly. The two began brawling on the spot, throwing punches back and forth. Tang Wulin had long since backed away to a safer distance, but a child before them, he didn't dare intervene in a fight between titled Douluos. Even Shen Yi and Wu Zhangkong had retreated. Here we go again. Shen Yi sighed. I swear we can't go more than a week without them fighting. Wu Zhangkong beckoned Tang Wulin to his side. They'll finish up soon enough. Get some exercise in the meantime. Take a walk. Just don't go too far and don't enter any forbidden areas. Tang Wuling turned to Wu Zhangkong, a pout on his lips, eyes with a dash of beautiful flavor. But teacher Wu, I'm not done eating yet. Wu Zhangkong shot him a dark look. I'll save some for you to eat later tonight. Sea God Island is already having a tough time accommodating your stomach. Each food item on the island was a hand-picked delicacy. Even Zhen Hill would be satisfied with the food here, but not Tang Wuling. His appetite was monstrous. The island had enough supplies to easily accommodate one more resident, but having one Tang Wuling was a whole different story. He alone could eat for well over 10 people. Tang Wuling left the house in resignation. The sky was painted in hues red and orange, dusk settling in. He took in a deep breath, enjoying the taste of clean, fresh air. It filled him with vigor. He had eaten half his fill, just enough so that he didn't feel hunger's rush. He strolled around the island, heading for the densest, thickest areas of vegetation. The stronger nature's embrace, the more at ease he felt. Uncle Master said the most efficient way to cultivate was to surround myself with all this green. There should be plenty of places like that on Sea God's Island. He paused for a second. Like this place. It's not bad. Oh, and over there's pretty good too. Amidst his wandering, Tang Wuling had walked his way deep into the island. Though the land itself didn't stretch far since it was contained within a lake, the thick and ancient vegetation made it hard to traverse. As he trekked onward, Tang Wuling encountered several forbidden areas, dodging past them like a scurrying animal. He didn't dare intrude. This was Sea God's Island. Laughter like the tinkling of bells. Before he knew it, his feet took him toward the source of the familiar voice. After pushing away a branch obstructing his view, he gasped, struck surprised by the steep cliff in front of him, over 20 meters in height. Two thick vines hung down it, a makeshift swing at the bottom. On the swing sat a handsome young man, his robes pressed neat, his posture impeccable. He looked to be in his late 20s, and from what Tang Wuling could discern, carried a gentle touch to his gaze. Tang Wuling didn't recognize him. He didn't sense a hint of power on the man either, and entertained the thought that he might be an ordinary person. Tang Wuling's gaze moved, and he blinked when he finally registered the other stranger, a woman who sat on the man's lap. She had her arms around his neck as she leaned on his shoulder, a warm smile on her lips. She was the source of the laughter. Despite a lack of breeze or other external force, the swing gently swung back and forth. A real fairy tale couple. Tang Wuling gulped, stunned. He didn't know the man's identity, but the woman was someone he would never forget. The holy spirit Douluo Yali, a woman even his uncle master respected. At that moment, the swing came to a stop. The man smiled at Yali. Looks like we have a young visitor. He seemed startled. Let's get going. Yali blushed furiously as she glanced at Tang Wuling. She waved her hand and disappeared with the man in a flash of light. The swing teetered in place from their abrupt disappearance. If not for that, Tang Wuling would have thought his eyes had been playing tricks on him. He still couldn't believe what he had just seen. The illustrious holy spirit Douluo had sat on a man's lap, giggling like an innocent schoolgirl. Tang Wuling swallowed. He immediately spun on his heel toward Zhuoshi's house. He felt like he just saw something he shouldn't have. But just as he walked, he caught sight of silver hair and a brush of red. Isn't that the girl from earlier? The twilight hour did nothing to hide her beauty. In fact, she shone more brilliantly than ever. Chapter 489. Naya. On the narrow path, Tang Wuling and the silver-haired girl locked gazes. Shivers ran down their spines. Previously he had only received the privilege of a fleeting glance before he was whisked away by Wu Zhangkong. But now, standing face to face with the girl, he could finally see her face clearly. Could finally register those familiar features. Naya. At first, her expression stayed blank, revealing nothing beneath her cold exterior. Then the confusion slowly melted from her eyes and tears welled up. She let out a cry. Tang Wuling froze as she threw herself into his arms. Naya. It's Naya. It's really her. He snapped out of his shock, his heart quivering. He had used his connections to search for her far and wide, but in the end she had been so close at hand. The beautiful girl before him was Naya, his little sister. She had been just 6 when she disappeared, and now before he knew it 6 years had passed. A blossoming young lady. Tang Wuling hadn't even recognized her at first glance, but he never forgot her warmth, her smell, and her smile. He could hardly believe that it was her, that he wasn't dreaming, that he didn't somehow make a mistake and confused resemblance for the real thing. In fact, when he had blurted out her name, his mind had yet to catch up with his body. Never had he expected this. Naya hugged him tight, her body trembling as she sobbed. Big brother, is it really you? This isn't a lie, right? She asked, eyes bright. Her heart tingled with excitement. Tang Wuling shared her sentiment, if not more. He was strong and brave, but in the end, the scars of having his family leave him would never fade. He had grown up an orphan. This reunion with Naya, his little sister, was more than he could hope for. Naya's really big now, and she's so slender. I can't believe she used to be a glutton like me. She's only 12, but she looks a bit older. Wow. But she remembers me. I'm still her big brother. Minutes later, the two finally put a stopper on their overflowing emotions. Naya smiled brilliantly at Tang Wuling. Big brother, why are you here? I'm an out-of-court student. What about you? I heard from Teacher Wu that you're the Sea God Pavilion's master's disciple. I thought your martial soul didn't awaken. Naya wiped away the last of her tears. Big brother, you first. What have you been doing these past years? Tang Wuling's eyes reddened once more at her question. He did his best to fight back the tears as he told her of what happened after she left. When she heard about his parents' disappearance, her brows drew tight in a frown. She remained silent throughout the story, an attentive listener. By the time he was finished, the sky was pitch black. Naya, what about you? Tang Wuling asked. But right before she could answer, his communicator rang. He took it out and looked at the name on the screen. Sorry, it's my teacher, he said, a meek smile. Yes, Teacher Wu. He answered the call. Come back quickly, said Wu Zhangkong, voice cold as usual. Yes, Tang Wuling answered, though he'd much rather catch up with Naya and talk into the night. But this was Sea God's Island, hallowed ground for Shrek Academy. He must obey his teacher. Naya, I gotta leave first. My grand teacher is Scarlet Dragon Douluo Zhuoshi, so I'm staying with him. Let's meet up here again tomorrow and you can tell me what you've been up to. Okay. Naya smiled sweetly, nodding shyly. Tang Wuling hugged her again before running off. Naya stood there, watching him leave. When she could no longer see him, she bit her lip. Big brother. Upon returning to the house, Tang Wuling waited for any orders from Wu Zhangkong. However, his teacher remained silent and sent him off to bed early. As Tang Wuling shrugged off his shoes and climbed into bed, he settled himself into meditative position. But try as he might, he could not fall into that familiar feeling. Reuniting with Naya had brought forth an intense joy within his heart, and it still clung to him, feeding his restlessness. As direct disciple to the Pavilion Master, Naya's position was unrivaled among the students of Shrek Academy. He was happy for her. She was a soul master now too. Despite this, he could not wrap his mind around how she had awakened her martial soul and became so strong. Naya's reappearance ignited Tang Wuling's longing for his parents. Mum, Dad, I finally found Naya. Where did you two go? Tang Wuling woke up early the next day and practiced golden dragon shocks the heavens under Zhuoshi's supervision through the morning. Although he didn't get much sleep, he felt invigorated. He looked forward to his meeting with Naya in the afternoon. By the time he reached their meeting spot, Naya was already there waiting for him. Catching sight of her silver eyes, he couldn't help but ask, Naya, weren't your eyes purple? What happened to them? Why did they change? Naya smiled. It's because my martial soul awakened. Big brother, I'm sorry I left without saying goodbye. My family found me and took me away. Tang Wuling's heart thumped. They found you? She nodded. Yeah. Then brought me back to our clan right away. After that, they held a ceremony and awakened my martial soul. And then, my family brought me here when I was 8 to study under my teacher. That's about it. My story is pretty boring compared to yours. I really missed you though. He had an inkling she was keeping something from him. Still, he refrained from prodding. Anything she withheld must be a clan secret. It's good that you reunited with your family. I missed you too. Naya stepped forward and grabbed his hand, placing it on her cheek. Big brother, when are you going to take me out to eat some good food? Tang Wuling's heart melted. How about right now? Yes. Let's go. A smile blossomed on Naya's lips. Tang Wuling led her by the hand to the lakeside. He called Wu Zhangkong and gave an excuse to get the afternoon off, saying he had something important to attend to. On the small boat, Tang Wuling forced Naya to sit and watch as he pushed the heavy oars. The boat cut across the clear waters, straight for the shore. Naya watched him with a grin, her chin cradled in her hands. He met her smile with one of his own. Finally could he taste a hint of peace, what he had yearned for, familial bonds, wrapped tight around him in an embrace. His little sister was back. Even if her original family had reclaimed her, in his heart she would forever be his little sister. Upon arriving on shore, Tang Wuling hopped off first and offered a hand to help Naya disembark the boat. After a semester of studying in Shrek Academy, he knew the city like the back of his hand. They wove through the streets excitedly, especially on Tang Wuling's part, his favorite food stand their destination. You're still too slow, said Liang Xiaoyu, his eyes never leaving the side of Shishi, who was running around the working student dormitory. You need to pay attention to the way you move, how you preserve momentum in your acceleration. You need to imbue your speed into your attacks, bring both speed and power into harmony. It's similar to being one with the sword. Only once you attain that state will you be able to bring out the full potential of speed. Shishi slowed to a jog and stopped in front of Liang Xiaoyu. He listened earnestly, not daring to miss a single word. Follow the path of killing with a single blow. You need to concentrate all of your speed into empowering your attack to accomplish that. Speed, power, martial soul and soul skills, patience, and an opportunity are all essential to pulling off such a strike. Just listening to Liang Xiaoyu's lecture caused his heart to beat quicker, his blood to roar. He felt certain, like he was no longer lost, like he was finally stumbling onto his true path. Everything Liang Xiaoyu said resonated with him. New doors were opening. Shrek Academy followed a hands-off approach in nurturing their students. Students could ask for guidance, but the more profound the answer, the more contribution points it would cost. Even then, a meticulous answer like Liang Xiaoyu's was hard to find. Not to mention, Liang Xiaoyu demonstrated attacks, footwork, and techniques as he lectured. Shishi understood his shortcomings well. He was lacking in lethal power, and his speed was nothing remarkable either. If he couldn't increase his attack power, then he would be useless on the battlefield. He still hadn't tapped into the full potential of his daggers, but now a path had opened up for him. Chapter 490. Coincidence. All right. Let's end things here today. Practice some more when you get home and we'll meet again at the same time tomorrow. I want to see your progress, Liang Xiaoyu said as he patted Shishi on the shoulder. Then he disappeared in a flicker. Damn, he's fast. Shishi surveyed the area, trying to catch a glimpse of Liang Xiaoyu. There were many mysteries surrounding the man, such as why Liang Xiaoyu would choose to impart his techniques onto him. They were practically strangers. Liang Xiaoyu didn't seem to be a teacher either, yet he was allowed to freely come and go through school grounds. Shishi had voiced his questions before. All he received for his efforts was for Liang Xiaoyu to brush it off, telling him not to worry. Shishi didn't push the issue afterward. He dragged his exhausted body back to the dormitory. Letting out a sigh, he found himself fixated at Yuan and Yui's door. Then his gaze drifted to the window. Another pair of eyes met his. An instant later, the curtains jerked closed. Shishi recalled the scene he witnessed yesterday. His heart quivered. I have to cultivate harder. If I can at least match Yuan in strength, I might still stand a chance. The fatigue vanished from his body. Determination pumped through his veins as he ran to the sink and splashed water on his face. He heard a creak behind him and spun around just in time to see Yuan and Yui open her door and walk out. She was back in men's clothing, not sparing him a single glance as she walked away. Heart thumping hard, Shishi raced after her. Yuanan, where are you going? She remained silent, ignoring him. Are you grabbing food? I'll go with you. How about it? I'm hungry too. Shishi remained at her tail like a puppy. Faster than lightning she stopped in place and turned to face him, an eerie calm in her expression. Shishi averted his gaze and looked to the sky, a whistle from his lips. You bastard. Yuan and Yui spat out. She had no intention of letting him do what he wanted, and picked up her pace until it resembled a sprint. But Shishi did not drop his pursuit. This time he kept silent, maintaining a measured distance of half a pace behind her, matching her every step. Yuan and Yui left campus, her steps quickening as she joined the people littering the streets. She ignored Shishi, trying to lose him in the crowd, but he stuck to her like gum, never leaving her side the entire time. She stopped, spinning on her heel to smack him with a sharp glare. Are you done yet? After scanning the area, Shishi bowed his head slightly, his view in line with his feet. He snickered. Your family doesn't own this street, right? If you can walk down it, then so can I, shameless. Yuan and Yui snarled, but she didn't dare lay a hand on him on the busy street. Shishi smiled. How do you know my nickname? Everyone called me that when I was a small kid. You. Yuan and Yui stared him down. Although she wanted to thrash him right then and there, Shishi preemptively took a step back from her. There was no way she could match the reaction time of an agility type. Snorting, Yuan and Yui decided to stick with the original plan. Ignore him. He could follow her all he wanted, but as soon as she finished eating she was heading back to campus. Just like that, a delicate balance of mere paces from each other, the two turned into a small street filled with food stands. Besides them, there were few people present. Usually, students frequented this little street, but for now they were all gone for vacation. That didn't stop hardworking vendors to set up shop anyway, and several food stands lined the sidewalk, each flaunting a diverse range of appetizing aromas. These smells drifted along the street, mixing together in harmony to entice customers. Shishi realized how hungry he was once he felt the heat of the grills, took in the sweet and savory smells. His stomach growled. Yuan and Yui looked around a bit before approaching a shop that sold grilled meat skewers. Can I get 2 skewers of squid and 2 tofu skins? I'll have the same thing, Shishi said to the shop owner, stepping in front of her. I'm paying for the both of us. I don't need you to pay for me. The look Yuan and Yui gave him could freeze. Shishi smiled wryly. We're classmates. You don't have to be so serious. You're in the 1st grade, and I'm in the 2nd. We're not classmates. Well, we still attend the same academy. You're the senior brother here, so are you saying it's your treat? I won't refuse if you do. Shishi smirked playfully. Yuan and Yui's expression darkened, a fierce glint in her eyes. What did you call me? Senior brother? Yuan and Yui snorted, then turned away and ignored him once more. It smells good. Big brother, can we grab some grilled squid? Said someone with a sweet voice a short distance away. Boss, get us 50 squid skewers please. Shishi was all too familiar with that voice. He turned around, and sure enough his eyes caught the sight of his captain, Tang Wuling. Then his gaze went further. Tang Wuling was holding the hand of a girl their age. The instant he laid eyes on her, he felt faint. What a beauty. A goddess-like beauty. Yuan and Yui, Yu Xinglan, Xu Shaoan, and Yu Yue were all charming and pretty girls, but they couldn't hold a candle to the girl accompanying Tang Wuling. Enchanting silver hair, a natural beauty that was neither lively nor cold. It was as if her beauty was decreed by the heavens. Huh. Shishi, what are you doing here? And Yuanan, you're here too? Yuan and Yui finally flipped around. The moment Shishi saw Naya, her mind reeled in shock. Holy shit. He really is straight. But in that case, what about Yue? Now that there's proof he likes girls, doesn't it seem like there was something going on between the two of them? Naya glanced at Tang Wuling, then back at Shishi and Yuan and Yui. We're grabbing food. Who's this with you? Shishi eyed Tang Wuling suspiciously. Oh. This is Naya, my little sister. We lost touch for a few years, but we surprisingly ran into each other on Sea God's Island. Naya, this is Shishi and Yuanan. Shishi's name means thankful encounter. Hello, Naya said with a slight bow. Finally comprehending the situation, Shishi stared Tang Wuling straight in the eyes. Is she a little sister by blood? Oh wait, is this the little sister that embroidered that blanket for you? When you beat some guy up for when we first got to East the Academy? Cause he stepped on it. This is her. Tang Wuling smiled. Yep. Shishi studied Naya, awed by her looks. He hastily stretched out his hand. Hi. I'm Wuling's best friend, Shishi. I'm an agility-type soul elder. Naya giggled, then hid behind Tang Wuling, avoiding Shishi's hand. Shishi looked away, cheeks flushed, but didn't take any offense. He turned his head again to face Tang Wuling, a hint of something flickering in his eyes. Yuan and Yui simply acknowledged Naya with a nod. Come take a seat. You kids ordered a lot, so it's going to take a while, said the owner of the food stand. There were some tables set up behind the stand, situated out in the open. A cool breeze blew through, carrying an odd mixture of scents, food and nature. Only one table remained available, and it was just large enough to seat the 4 of them. Tang Wuling and Naya sat on one side. Shishi and Yuan and Yui were forced to sit on the other. The shop was too small for anything else. Shishi broke the short silence. Boss, how come you haven't been around these past few days? Tang Wuling grinned. I've been cultivating on Sea God's Island, so I didn't have a chance to go back. You guys were watching the dorm anyway. He placed a hand to his mouth. Right, Yuanan, I'll forge your spirit alloy once I get back. Okay. Their squid arrived just then. 54 skewers of squid and 4 skewers of tofu skin served hot on a platter. To Tang Wuling, this was just a drop in the bucket. Even so, he set aside 2 squid skewers and handed them to Naya before beginning to eat. As Naya ate, she snuck gleeful glances at Tang Wuling. Big brother, you can eat so much. Tang Wuling chuckled. My appetite couldn't have changed in just a few short years. You should eat some more too. I haven't forgotten how much you loved eating either. Okay. Naya finished her 2 skewers in a few quick bites, then grabbed another 2. Boss, can we get another 50 squid, 50 chicken, 50 lamb, and 50 beef? Tang Wuling called out. Eating together with Naya after so long stoked his appetite. He was ready to indulge. Yuan and Yui and Shishi had average appetites, so they quickly finished eating. With nothing else to do, they watched Tang Wuling and Naya gorge themselves, their eyes growing wider and wider by the minute. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.